and gentlemen, it is Sunday, November 21st. I'm here on a day of rest. That's apparently not a day of rest for either myself or my guest, Doug Ramshaw. Doug's the president of Minera, Alamos. I got it right that time, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
I've been calling him CEO for the last 2 years. Darren rolls his eyes. So you put out a resource estimate recently on what we'll call it your third property for the moment, Cerro de Oro. One thing I want to touch on, I mean, I don't think you literally came out and said it in the last 2 or 3 releases that referred to Cerro, but it's fairly clear, I think, to everybody that Cerro will be the second mine rather than the third one. That's the way things are probably shaping up right now.
Yeah, I think the breadcrumbs were there, and I think with this initial resource, it becomes easier to see why. So yeah, a simple second open pit heap leach, low capital project will fit in nicely behind Santana.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because granted it was quite a while ago when I last remember looking at that project, but a project that your CEO is pretty famous for getting into production very cheaply and very profitably. And I've admitted in the past that I was one of the skeptics at the time, was Castillo. And this is this resource looks similar to Castillo in a lot of ways. I assume that's part of the reason why it sort of checked the boxes pretty quickly for you guys.
Yeah, looks similar. In many ways, the history of it is remarkably similar. El Castillo and Cerro de Oro, like a number of other projects that turned into big mines in Mexico, La India, Agnicos, they're all Noranda gold discoveries from the early 90s.
Okay.
So yeah, Noranda found El Castillo and Darren built it, and I think this is going to be the second Noranda gold discovery that we'll build. But very similar, except I think better starting grade, way better strip, better starting ounces than we developed El Castillo on, almost twice as many starting ounces. And I think by the time this gets built, considerably more than that. So yeah, there's a lot of analog there to what we did successfully at Castle Gold. And
one thing I'd like to have you remark on, because I know this is quite important to the analysis process, the project selection process that you and Darren both have. In the case of both Santana and it looks also Cerro de Oro, one thing that looks quite obvious is that you've got room to grow these. And I know that's probably, it's one of the central requirements that both of you have for choosing a project to acquire. Can you sort of expand on that sort of philosophy a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, no, and I mean, in many ways, you can look at El Castillo as another example. There's no problem starting production out at 25, 30,000 ounces a year, as El Castillo did, as Santana will, and have a resource that can allow that to grow. But for us, building a production profile of, our goal is 200,000 ounces plus, 200, 300,000 ounces in due course. You don't want to do that from a series of 45, 50,000 ounce a year operations. At some point you hit bandwidth limitations. Right. So part of our criteria when we look at a project is, can it get to 1.5 million ounces or more? It's not to say they all will, but if it can, it means, that 45, 50,000 ounce a year, operation like Santana as a go forward basis is allows it to then expand to 100,000 ounces a year. And, I think Cerro de Oro, meets those criteria for a resource that will allow those initial production rates to scale. So suddenly you're bolting a few 100,000 ounce a year operations together. It's much, much easier to get to those kinds of production profiles without spreading yourself too thinly.
Okay. And speaking of Santana, can you just kind of give us a thumbnail update where things are at?
Yeah, obviously when we got the construction finance and earlier this year talked about a construction timeline, um, it was pre-COVID, and not to use it as a crutch in any shape or form. Actually, I think this is a testament to our team more than anything. You know, our original guidance was 6 to 8 months for construction at Santana,
Right.
and you know, roughly 10 million Canadian.
Yep.
Uh, with the government shutdowns in Mexico that basically halted all mining activities for April and May, our construction really only started proper in June, you know, even, you know, the bulk of it in July, but, you know, certain work on the ground in mid-June. So, yeah, we're on track right now. We'll have an update before year end for the market at large when we can give that full on clarity. But right now we're on guidance for, you know, material getting stacked on the pad in February. You know, and when you look at that, that's basically at the upper end of our pre-COVID guidance. I think that speaks incredibly to our team down there. So in many ways, it's been a logistical challenge, but it hasn't actually slowed us down too much. It did delay the startup of things. So yeah, no, it really, I mean, Darren's not left Mexico since going down there after PDAC. I think he is
Wow.
coming back for a few weeks at Christmas. I'd like to think those few weeks are not just in quarantine before heading down there. He needs a break. But you know, we are very much a Mexican-based team with a strong Mexican national contingent amongst our senior ranks. So it allows us to get things done without fly in and fly out and logistical challenges of being based in Canada and trying to do things in Mexico.
Right. One thing I know a lot of shareholders are interested in, I mean, I think I probably share what I think is your opinion that Minera has sort of moved past the point where one can realistically expect any set of drill holes to make a hell of a lot of difference individually. But news flow is nice. Good drill holes are nice. A set of drill holes that clearly has you, you know, even at an early stage, you look at it and go, okay, there's a couple 100,000 more ounces. I mean, those do make a difference. Are you drilling anywhere right now?
Yeah, we're drilling around Nicho as part of our phase 3 drilling.
Right.
And as part of that phase 3 drilling, and to your point about holes that can make a difference, like Nicho is a very much a known quantity at this
Yeah.
point. You know, we're closing off that initial pit. It's pit
This is grade
optimization
control
drilling.
stuff, essentially.
Yeah, so unless there was something that was material outside of what we expect Nicho
Yeah.
to present, you know, I think Minera has broken away from your traditional story where investors are looking to drill results. And
Yeah.
in many ways, that's what I want. I don't want us to be thought of as a drill play. But that being said, there's drilling that we can do that I think can be as impactful as the drill play. And the phase 3 drilling will move to drilling what will be discovery holes when we drill them on the other pipes. So not only, you know, are those true meaningful drill results when we start drilling those in Q1,
Yeah.
but they'll also have that potential to have a dramatic impact, especially amongst the analyst community, when they start in their modeling to scope out, well, you know, Santana can be what we believe it can be, this 1.5 million, 2 million ounce deposit, albeit from a series of discrete that serve as a central path. So I love the fact that we have the elements of production in the story, which I think is the best way to play a gold market. There's the development pipeline, but I think there's meaningful exploration discovery kind of components to this story too. And it's a little ETF of those 3 phases of a company's development all wrapped up into one.
Okay. Well, not to appear even more ill-informed than I normally am, I tend to make a point of not. I generally make a point of not really spending any time really looking at mining analyst reports. I'd rather not have my own views kind of altered, you know, consciously or unconsciously. But I'm just out of curiosity because I know some of the guys that are following you from the houses and they're good analysts. Just out of curiosity, what are they? Are they basically just sticking with what you absolutely know about in terms of ounces when they're running NAVs? or are any of them being optimistic? I mean, you know, I'll make my own assumptions when the time comes, but where I'm going here obviously is if I can see a couple of ways to add not inconsiderable number of ounces probably fairly quickly at Oro, and you've obviously got a shot to do it fairly quickly even at Santana if one of these new pipes really works out. Are those guys making any forward assumptions on that stuff, or are they pretty much just going with what's in house right now?
Yeah, no, in many ways, if there's, they're working off very conservative resource models.
Yeah.
They're being less conservative than we are on gold price when they're looking at their NAV calculations. I mean, we build our projects to a certain gold price, which is well below where we are now. So some of these analysts are looking at spot price, models. Yeah. But from a resource perspective, which is the exciting part to me, is as we demonstrate that these projects can be a lot bigger, the jump up in their valuations is going to be significant, without a doubt. But yeah, no, they have to be conservative, and I appreciate that. But it also means that we really have this ability to maintain our record of kind of over delivering.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of finances, I think you guys are good to go. You got plenty to get Santana into production.
Yeah, we're sitting right now. We have no debt. We retired a couple of $1 million of debt that was out there. So we have no debt, which I think is really actually, exciting for me. We're going to enter as, gold production as a debt-free company, and not a lot of companies, when they get to that stage, can ever say that. We've got 22 million in cash, and we still sit on a couple of million shares of Prime Mining. From time to time over the course of this year, we've been liquidating some of that position to make other purchases, other investments, which we feel have greater benefit for the company. So yeah, roughly 25 million in working capital. That's, even being conservative, we're probably at 16 million in cash by the time where mining starts at Santana.
Right.
So Darren and I have discussed the fact, and we'll probably put one in place, even though we won't need it, just to have a working capital facility, even if it's working with a group that, pay us on ounces on the pad and against delivery of the doré, something as simple as that. With the financing that we got done in September, we're in a position where, yes, we can not just fund Santana, we can fund the work that will be going on in our other projects. And by the time Santana's kicking off free cash, probably late Q3, early Q4, that's when we anticipate us being in a position to make a construction decision at Cerro de Oro. So you've got that free cash coming from Santana coupled with existing treasury. We should be able to now, if we do nothing else corporately, we should be able to, with our existing finances, build Santana and then have that help contribute to build Cerro de Oro, and potentially projects 1 and 2 can fund project number 3, and we can maintain that, debt-free gold producer status, which maybe is one of the few ways we can beat our gold producer peers, but it's a good one.
I'm just going to note here that Doug said project 3. He didn't use a specific name, not to go conspiracy theory on everybody, but I know you and Darren are always looking at stuff. You've had like a zillion different things under review for pretty much from day one, I think, right? You haven't stopped. You're still looking.
There's always, yeah. I did mean La Fortuna, but we are always looking at, there's probably 3-4 projects at any one time. In fact, asset number 3 that has now got a name to it, and now confusingly is going to be mine number 2. But for the longest time in our presentation, it was Santana and La Fortuna, and we were looking at an asset number 3 to bolt on. Because we do want to grow this into a significant gold company. Well, the project we were actually looking at that maybe had turned into that project, 2 years of desktop review and some investment looking at it. In the end, it didn't make sense for us and our shareholders. As luck would have it, we were still able to give a name to that project, and it was Cerro de Oro, which in parallel to that other desktop review we'd been looking at for, or we knew about for many years. The deal came together very quickly in June. And I think it's a way better deal for our shareholders. I mean, we're talking even on this base case resource, sub $10 an ounce. For ounces, more importantly, we will be developing and selling in due course. Sub $10 an ounce. As we expand the resource, the numbers will look better and better. And I think the great thing about Cerro de Oro is I can already in my mind envision PowerPoint slides in my deck 2 years from now, which will highlight not just our team's ability to execute, but also the permitting environment we're in, because I think there are very few jurisdictions in the world and very few teams that can take a project, you know, with a starting resource in August of 2020 and get it permitted and in production inside of 2 years. And that's really our plan for Cerro de Oro. You know, that could, second half of 2022, that comes on stream, just as Santana's going through its first expansion as those initial pits just open up naturally in year 2. So yeah, I've already got the slides in my deck planned out for that milestone.
Okay. I think that's a good update. I mean, what are the immediate plans at Cerro de Oro? I mean, what comes next? I mean, I guess you're doing some met, but you're also planning a bit more drilling, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways we can expand that oxide resource or that resource at Cerro de Oro. So right now, the resource we've got we are doing our initial internal detailed engineering work on. That will be the basis for our permit application submissions in the new year. Shortly thereafter, again, we probably will start this Q1. We will be doing some infill drilling. There's really not much needed. It's a very disseminated, homogeneous system there. We've got a big porphyry system there. We've got the heart of it. Disseminated mineralization. Where there are areas where you might say, okay, we need a couple of holes in this spot, like that would probably serve not just to infill the resource, but also serve as met holes. And when we're doing those holes, we'll punch them deeper as well. Only a half dozen of the historical holes, of 90 or so that were drilled at Cerro de Oro, actually go much deeper than the oxide. You know, a few deep ones, they show the system continues to depth. And whilst we don't need the sulfide to leach, we know at Santana, the sulfide leaches, the gold's in free form. You know, at El Castillo, it didn't leach. That's where I hope the El Castillo analog breaks down. Here, you know, we actually think it does. And there's more test work required. That will change the scale of Cerro de Oro significantly. I'm encouraged because, I mean, Darren, our CEO, we are well served having a metallurgist as a CEO. It's so often the critical, you know, the Achilles heel of projects. He's not just a metallurgist, he's an exceptional metallurgist. And we, you know, it's one of the reasons I backed this deal with as much money as I did. I've always slept comfortably at night knowing the technical side is so well in hand. So when Darren, talks to me about, you know, his real feeling that the sulfide will leach at Cerro de Oro, you know, yes, we need to do more work, but he doesn't have feelings like that, little tingly spidey senses without there a lot of experience to back it up. So, you know, that's the other area. You know, we can drill those pits, the extensions to those pits. There's some ground that, you know, you could add, and then the sulfide side of things would take it to a different level, and maybe to kind of rival some of the large deposits that are in that northern Zacatecas region in due course. So, you know, that work will start in Q1. In Q1, we will start drilling those other pipes at Santana, which will be incredibly meaningful there. and obviously I think there is going to be a re-rate as we go into production at Santana. So the first quarter is going to be an exciting one for us that have gone through the bottom of the Lassonde curve the last 2 years, probably more successfully than most companies, because
Yeah,
I don't think
you look like you're well out of the bottom of the Lassonde curve on that star chart that I'm looking at, but
it will be nice to leave that behind and
yeah,
go into production and signal to the market that not only can we have organic production growth by adding multiple assets to this portfolio, which gives us production growth that the majors once had in their life, but now they're just trying to maintain it.
yeah.
But each of those projects themselves has that ability to expand. So the compounding effect of that can be, really significant, even if gold doesn't take off. And if gold takes off, then, forget about it. I mean, the numbers get positively cartoonish, and we're not building a business model requiring it. We'll certainly take it.
Yeah, no, it is important for everybody to understand that these economics are being run far below today's gold prices, and the break even for Santana, and I suspect the same will be true of Cerro, is far, far, far below where gold's trading now. It's down at levels where I don't realistically expect us to see the gold price anytime soon anyway. So I'm not even worried about it. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything I didn't ask about, or is there anything that you think people should be keeping an eye out for, or anything you want to highlight that you think isn't being highlighted enough?
Well, I mean, on the project side, probably not. I think we've laid out the catalyst there. I do believe that, I think we all, you and me at heart as well, we love the discovery plays, the
Yeah,
exploration plays, the talk that they can give. And we have that within our company. But against the backdrop of discovery plays, I think everyone needs to have a Minera Alamos. That proverbial put it in a lockbox, throw away the key, come back and see what the company has done with it. And I think our track record, shows not only that you can rely on us to do what we say we're going to do, but when you look at the sloppiness, which I think is probably the appropriate word for the market since early August,
yeah,
the sloppiness in the market, where a lot of exploration stocks have raised a bunch of money, have given up a lot. A lot of big companies that did financings are trading below those financing prices. I think that defensiveness in the portfolio has been on clear display in how Minera has traded over the last few months. And it sets us up very nicely for catalysts in the new year, where I think, I don't think people anticipated an immediate return to normality in markets post the election.
yeah.
It has removed some uncertainty. And I think that that uncertainty is being removed. There is a certainty that stimulus and everything is coming. That sets up for a very good 2021, even if I think we've got some cleanup to do in the market, especially entering tax loss selling season over the next month. But for gold bugs, 2021 should be pretty much a repeat, I think, of this year in terms of how good it was as a positive outlier in portfolios. So we're always out there setting ourselves up for consideration amongst people's portfolios. Definitely appreciate your support and that of plenty of your readers, and I want to continue to reward them for their support of the company.
Oh yeah, you have nothing but happy shareholders that I know, that's for sure. And I would agree with your overall comments on 2021. I mean, I'm not personally surprised at what the gold price is doing right now. As soon as we got through election night in the US and I saw how things appeared to be panning out, and of course January 4th could change it, but how things appeared to be panning out with the Senate, at that point I was assuming there would be no stimulus until the end of January for political reasons. I'm not going to bore people with or infuriate Trump is, but to me, it was just obvious it just wasn't going to happen. Maybe they surprise us. I don't expect it. I have no idea. No one has any idea how much slowdown there'll be in the U.S. or other economies, and how much putting it off means you have to write a bigger check later. And then even honestly, how possible ought to be, because it's going to be tough depending on how those Senate races pan out. But it doesn't, I think the market and gold traders, to my mind, got a little overly fixated on that whole fiscal stimulus thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I appreciate why people think it's a potentially an inflationary thing, and there's potentially an inflationary impulse. We had to get through a deflationary impulse from 2020 being a shit show first. I think it's being helped in large part, interestingly enough, by China. In some ways, it weirdly reminds me of 2009, where everybody thought base metals were dead for the next 10 years, and then China came in and bought up everything in sight. They seem to be doing it again on that side. But I don't think any of this stuff gets you past the basic paradigm that there's simply, I don't see any feasible, and by feasible, I mean political, politics being the art of the possible. I don't see any feasible way other than some sort of reset, devaluation, insane money printing, MMT, take your pick. The numbers just don't work. Like there's just too much of the debt out there, and that's just going to expand exponentially for the next year. So I'm not medium long term. I'm not worried about the gold price at all. And I would point out that companies like Minera, Doug and Darren have this company on a growth curve, and the growth curve, I suspect, is going to overmatch whatever happens to the gold price short term anyway. In fact, that's already pretty self-evident if you look at Minera's chart. Doug and Darren and their team have done a fantastic job of pushing this thing forward. I would argue it's probably the best development story out there. And it certainly trades as one of the best, if not the best development story that I know of. And I think that's just going to continue. So, notwithstanding where the stock is right now, I asked Doug those questions about, how the now is getting calculated and what people are using for a reason, because I do think we're likely to see pretty large expansions to the resource at both Santana and Cerro. And you combine that with simply, the clock counting down and the company going to production, I still think there's lots of room for Minera to get stronger and have a higher market cap. It's Minera Alamos. It's MAI on the venture, MAIFF in the US. Great stock, great management team. These guys have under-promised and over-delivered all the way through, and I think they're going to keep doing it. Thanks for coming by on a Sunday today, Doug. I will talk to you again soon. I know you probably have lots on your hands right now.
Well, thanks for having me on, Eric. Always fun chatting with you.
And sorry to cut into your football.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye now.